So you want to buy a house, but there's all these obstacles keeping you from buying a house. Well, let's talk about those, and then let's talk about some solutions to make it easier for you. Let's get into it. Hey guys, how you doing? Werenka here from Simply Home. I'm the state of Michigan broker, and I've got an all-star team of agents. So whether you're looking to buy, sell, invest, rent, whatever you need, we've got you covered. We even do property management now. So one of the big things that always come up, especially when dealing with first-time buyers and people who are just kind of like thinking about entering the housing market, are all the various kind of barriers to entry to get into that house or into the market. And I mean, there definitely are a few legitimate barriers to entry, things that have popped up recently that maybe weren't the case a couple of years ago. So we're going to talk about a few of those, and then we're going to talk about solutions that can probably help you to get into that home. So by far and away, the most frequent thing that I hear when I'm talking to buyers who are trying to get into the housing market, having a little bit of trouble sometimes, is affordability, just housing prices in our market. So let's jump in, talk about that for a minute. So across the entirety of Metro Detroit, year over year, from July of 2024 to just this last July, which is the most recent statistics that we have, we saw a 6% increase in the average sale price. And if you're just checking like the national headlines, you're probably seeing, that prices are down, days on market's up. It's the first buyer's market in 12 years or whatever the case may be. That is, that's for sure happening in other parts of the country, but it's not really happening in our neck of the woods. All of our, price issues, if you want to call them that, are just related to supply and demand. Listing inventory, like the number of homes on the market, has absolutely increased. Basically, we're to the highest point that we have been since COVID, but we're still under where we were in 2019 in terms of inventory. So, we've seen an increase, which I talk about quite frequently on this channel, and that's a great thing. That's exactly what we want to see. That's a good thing for buyers, and honestly, it can be a good thing for sellers as well, as long as you're putting a little bit of effort into marketing your home. But that being said, I don't see the market shifting to a point where we see what we're dealing with in South Florida is a big one, where that market there is just absolutely overwhelmed with the amount of inventory that they have on the market. There's other parts of the country too. I think Phoenix has quite a few. Pacific Northwest has an overabundance of active listings right now. We're just not seeing that here. And unless we do, we're not really going to see a massive shift in the way the market's operating right now. So, we might see a lower increase year over year, a year from now, potentially. I don't know if it might be more, it might be, but I don't see the market flipping into a buyer's market just for that reason. We just don't have enough inventory right now, and so much of the inventory that we did have was bought up during the recession by investors. So, those are houses that just probably won't ever see the market for quite some time. So, there's not really a reason for the market to shift. So that being said, yes, prices keep going up every year. They keep going up year over year. But the good news is we're also not in a super high price point part of the country. So, there's definitely a home to fit almost every single budget in Metro Detroit. So that's definitely, I think that's going to help. But of course, it's something that we have to take into account, the fact that prices keep going up. Another kind of barrier to entry that I've been running into quite a bit is, just in terms of debt to income ratio, and it can also affect your credit, but that would be like student loan debt and or medical debt. And I know for a while, I think there was a proposal, or maybe medical debt did get taken off of people's credit reports, and I think it's back on now. So unfortunately, that was something that that was going to help people be able to qualify, obviously, and it doesn't look like it's going to be same deal with student loan debt. I think if you were able to get your student loans forgiven, congratulations on that. I don't think that's going to be anything that continues. So absolutely, that's something that will affect your buying ability. It'll affect the amount of home that you can buy. It might even keep you from being able to qualify for a mortgage if your student loan debt is high enough. Although I know there are certain professions where doctors and lawyers come to mind. There's a special type of mortgage to where their mortgage companies will lend you those funds right out of college, even though you might graduate with like $250,000 worth of student loan debt. They figure, in this profession, you're almost guaranteed to make well above that, to the point where you'll be able to afford it no problem. And so they'll your debt to income ratio doesn't mean quite as much under those mortgage programs. And then a big one that I just from talking to potential buyers, people who are thinking about buying their first home, is mortgage rates. I mean, that's been a big one. Everybody remembers, like, during COVID, rates were super low. We're in the 2 and 3% range. And if that ever comes back, I would be shocked. Like, I would be very surprised if we see mortgage rates that low ever again. They were kind of like pushed artificially low at that point, and then they popped back up, and they were, they basically had to raise the rates to combat inflation that came as a result from COVID, things like that. So now rates have kind of settled into like the mid sixes right now. Which, obviously we'd like to see them lower, but in the grand scheme of things, so for the last 10 years, the last 10-year period, even with those 2% mortgages and then they spiked up, the average mortgage rate for that 10-year period is 6.9%. And if we go all the way back from like 1971 till today, the average mortgage interest rate for a 30-year fixed rate conventional, the most common type of mortgage, was 7.17%. And this week, we're at 6.58. So we're below both of those averages. And I know it doesn't feel great, it doesn't sound great, but if you just look at the raw numbers, we're already in territory that's below average for like even the last 10 years. So while I'm not going to make the case that, hey, we're below average, the mortgage rates are awesome, like, I think ideally, I think the target is to get back down somewhere in the fives. That seems to be where, where a lot of buyers are pretty comfortable purchasing a home, if they get up below 6% on the interest rate. Who knows? Like, I have no idea what's going to happen with the economy. The Fed kind of, their benchmark affects the mortgage industry for sure in terms of where the rates are set, but they're kind of in a no-win situation right now. So it looks like employment's declining, which would make them want to lower rates, but it looks like inflation is rising, which would make them want to raise rates. So they just met today, and it sounds like there might be a rate cut in September, but maybe they're going to wait and see. Like, who knows? So the best advice I have is, if you can comfortably qualify for a home you like at the current prevailing mortgage rate, then if the time is right for you to buy and you can afford to do it without making yourself house poor, then why not do it? Because I'm more confident that prices will go up than I am that mortgage rates are going to go down anytime in the immediate future. But over the course of several years, I think we can definitely expect to see rates drop into a little bit of a more manageable range. So if that's the case, then you're better off locking it in at the 2025 price if we think prices are going to continue to go up, and you can always refinance down the road when it makes sense for you to do so and lower your payment on the house that you already wanted, that you already have. Or the stupid way of saying that is marry the house, date the rate, which I hate saying that, so that's why I didn't say it, but that's basically my long-winded way of saying that. And then another barrier to entry, which it first popped up, maybe it was about 4 years ago, when we started seeing the inflation kind of spike as kind of a result of the supply chains trying to get back up into gear after COVID happened. And then we're starting to see it again now. Where the consumer price index is up year over year, 3.1% higher than it was a year ago. and the overall inflation rate is 2.7%. And I know for like years we got spoiled for so long with the inflation rate being under 1% year over year, like for years and years and years. It wasn't really anything we even had to think about. Now it is. So, it's one of those things that I don't know that inflation itself is going to really impact the housing market per se, but it's one of those things where if all of your other costs are getting more expensive, you can at least know exactly what your house payment's going to be once you lock it in, you purchase that house, lock the rate, and it'll adjust up and down every year depending on your property taxes, but your principal and interest is basically going to be set. So even if everything else continues to get more expensive, your mortgage won't. And I can't say the same thing for rent because definitely I've been managing properties for a long time. I don't remember the last time we've lowered rent. I don't even think we have. So rent just keeps going up to where you can lock in for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. And like I said, even if everything else continues to get more expensive, your house payment will stay the same. So now that I've spent all this time talking about how it's difficult to get into the home you want to buy and there's all these barriers to getting into the market and all that, let's talk about some solutions to those problems. So it may be not quite as dire as it sounds. And first and foremost, geography. I kind of touched on this a little bit in this video already, but the fact that we live where we live is actually a really good thing for home buyers. So something that I've talked about on this channel before is, I'm friends with and work and refer business back and forth to like agents in almost every other major market in the United States and a lot of Canada as well. But so in that process, I'm able to get a really good, firsthand view of what, different price points are around the country. And now that, I'm the Michigan broker for Simply Home, we have a broker meeting with all the different state brokers every 2 weeks. And, just being a part of that it really kind of opens my eyes to the different price points around the country. And just it highlights the affordability that we have here in Metro Detroit because, in other, cities like, I don't even like Dallas, Texas or Phoenix, Arizona, your average starter home is going to be significantly, like almost 50 to 100% more expensive than it would be in Detroit. And, and then you talk other cities, talk Seattle, talk San Diego, New York City, like I think the average home price in New York City is over $800,000. So, and you can get into a starter home here in Detroit for $80,000. 10% of the starter home costs in New York City, we can get you into a home here. I mean, obviously, the home that you buy here for $80,000 is not going to be in the center of the universe, New York. But that's beside the point. The fact of the matter is, in our market, we have a pretty significant price range. Like we can accommodate pretty much whatever you're looking for. If you're looking to get into that house and be under $100,000, we can do that here. If you're looking for an estate on the water with acreage and you're willing to pay millions of dollars, we can do that too. And we've got everything in between. And most other cities, other major markets around the country can't say that. Like case in point, I can't even tell you in the past couple years how many homes I've sold that were, between, let's say under $70,000. Like probably 40 or 50, like a ton of them. So, our low end here is super low. And, those homes that I'm selling for, under $70,000, they're not like total garbage fixer-uppers and terrible neighborhoods either. We're talking like stable neighborhoods, brick homes, 3-bedroom homes with basements and garages. Like we can accommodate our lower end is significantly lower than a lot of the other cities around the country. So the fact that you are thinking about buying here in Metro Detroit is a good thing because you can get into that entry-level home and then you can move up gradually and you're not kind of like locked into starting out at a higher price point where it's going to make you harder to even afford to buy that home to begin with. And, even if you can afford it, with the price of everything else going up, you never want to be house poor like that. I'd never want to put people in a position to where their house payment is so much that they're having a hard time like enjoying life. Like we don't want that. So that's the good news about here is you can get into that home and still be able to afford to make the payment and still be able to like live on top of it. Another solution that we have, it's not specific to Michigan or Metro Detroit, but it's we have a ton of these programs, is down payment assistance programs. The biggest one here, that probably the one that people are most familiar with, is the MSHDA program, and that's through the state of Michigan, and that gives up to $10,000 in closing costs and down payment assistance. And that with MSHDA, I've done a video on that as well. That's in the form of a 0% loan, and the longer you live in the house, the less of that loan you have to repay. I think it's after 7 years it's completely forgiven. But I mean, that's a huge help, especially if you're buying that house that's $100,000 and you're getting 10%. Like, there's your down payment, there's all your closing costs. You can literally get into that house with nothing out of pocket. And what's better than that? If that's if you're able to make that payment, it's a home that you like, it's an area that you want to be in. You're good to go. And for our intents and purposes, so a lot of these programs that I'm going to talk about are for first-time buyers. But in the mortgage world, a first-time buyer just means you haven't had a mortgage in your name for at least 3 years. So you could have lived that house, you could have paid on a mortgage for 30 years, paid it off, sold that house, rented for 3 or 4 years, and decide you want to buy again. Well, congratulations, you're a first-time buyer again. So MSHDA is a big one that covers the whole state of Michigan. The city of Detroit has a down payment assistance program that's got a few more strings attached to it, but that's $25,000 in down payment assistance. So, if that's something that you qualify for, like, that's the biggest one that I was able to find that I would recommend. Like, clients of mine have used in the past. But yeah, if somebody's going to give you $25,000 to purchase a property, that's going to go an awful long way towards making your life a lot easier. There's another program called National Faith, and that is they offer up to, it's just under $14,000. It's $13,999. And that one, if you stay in that home for 5 years, that is completely forgiven. So that's just free money that they're handing you. Over on the west side of the state, Grand Rapids has a similar thing to the Detroit program, but the Detroit one's $25,000. Grand Rapids is $7,500, but it's a zero interest loan, and that's only for properties that are within the Grand Rapids city limits. But I would, if somebody's going to give you money, and why not, see if you can qualify for it and use it if that's the part of town you want to be in. And then similarly, there's other like county grants, like Oakland County has a $5,000 grant. I know Washtenaw County has it, Kalamazoo County as well. I would venture to say like probably more counties have it than not across the state. But that's kind of the thing where, if you're outside of those areas, I would just check with your lender partner, check with your agent, and you can probably just check with the county, check the housing department, see what they offer, if anything, to first-time home buyers or just any home buyer in that area. And then there's one other program that we've been using a lot that's really been helpful to buyers and really been a good addition to all these other programs. This one's not technically like down payment assistance, or not just handing you money for your down payment or for your closing costs, but it's through United Wholesale Mortgage, and it's a 1% down conventional mortgage. So I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. If you were buying a $100,000 house, your down payment is $1,000. So that one's based on certain zip codes. Like, not every zip code is going to be eligible. I haven't really dug into it, but I would venture to say like probably Birmingham is not going to be eligible for that, but Hazel Park might. So that's going to be the kind of thing where if you want to take advantage of that program, they do have I know there's a website. I can just send it right to my lender partner. He can just plug in the address and it says if it's eligible or not. So if that's something that you're interested in, I 100%, I'd research all of these different programs, see which one is the best fit for you, and just go from there. But there's certainly lots of opportunity out there for qualified buyers to be able to just get a lot of help on the initial entry into that market is the big one, because you have to save up for the down payment. You got to save up for closing costs. You have to make sure that the home that you're buying it fits into your budget on the monthly payment side. So that will help, that helps ease that pain quite a bit. So I highly recommend looking into any and all of your options as far as that goes. And if that's something where you don't even know where to start, just give me a call. I'm happy to help out with that for sure. So this is something that I took advantage of when I bought my first home a million years ago, and a lot of my first-time buyers do as well, and that's just getting a co-signer. Like my dad co-signed with me on my first property that I bought, and then I hung on to that thing for 15 years and sold it not too long ago, actually. Well, I guess at this point it was a little bit longer than I like to think about, but at any rate, it's always, if you have somebody that's willing to, that you trust, that's willing to co-sign with you, that has good credit, good income, that's definitely an option for you as well. And then finally, something that's even more common than a co-signer, even more common than down payment assistance, and like a lot of my first-time buyers. I haven't gone back and looked at the percentage, but I'd say probably close to a third of my first-time buyer clients are taking advantage of just getting a gift letter from a family member or a friend. And that's different from a co-signer, because a co-signer is like a co-buyer for you. They're going on the mortgage, they're signing the closing docs as well. A gift letter is just exactly what it sounds like. You get a family member that is going to just like, if you need, whatever, $5,000, $10,000, however much to put down on that property, they gift you the money. And so there's a few hoops to jump through to make that a thing. First and foremost, if you're getting a mortgage, we need to make sure that your lender is okay with it. So that wouldn't be something to talk to me about, but whoever's doing your mortgage, they'll know for sure if that's within the guidelines or not. And usually it is, especially on these first-time buyer programs. You probably wouldn't need down payment assistance and a gift from somebody else, but I don't know if it's possible to do that with MISHDA or anything like that, but your lender partner will. But basically all we really need from the person who's giving the gift is we need proof of funds from them, and we need just a letter that's signed. And it doesn't usually need to be notarized. Sometimes the lender would require that, but for the proof of funds, those funds that they're going to use to gift to you, those need to be sourced and seasoned, which is just the wordy way of saying they need to make sure that it's not drug money, because or money that's come from any illegal endeavor, because if that's the case, then the only reason they care about that is because then the mortgage company doesn't have first lien position if they have to foreclose on you. Like the government can come and seize the house, and then they're out all the money they lent you, which is why they just follow up and they track all that. And season just means it has to be in the account for like 30 days, and sourced means that if they can't just like take a cash deposit, put it in their account, and then give you and then write you a check for that same amount. They need to show that where that money came from, essentially. But it's usually not a problem. Hopefully it isn't for you. But those are some really common ways to make that entry into the housing market a little bit easier and a little bit less strenuous and difficult to obtain. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. There's a lot of ways. I know it can seem daunting to like start the process of purchasing a home, and I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of paperwork involved usually. And there's a little bit of a headache, and uploading things and finding bank statements and tax returns and things like that. That can be a little bit of a pain. But there's also a lot of programs out there that make your life so much easier. So I guess the best thing I can counsel is just to look into those before you even start the process. And that way it could cut down on some of the paperwork you have to take care of, and makes it a little more certain for you. Like, what you're getting into, what your payment's going to be, what your buying power is, things like that. And as always, if you have any questions whatsoever, you can reach out to me anytime. Call or text 586-491-5622. Shoot me an email, Werenka@simplyhome.com. And until next week, thank you so much for watching, guys. I'm here to help any way I can, and we'll talk soon. Have a great one.